Hi, I'm Ricky. Today we're making the setup for our Endless Runner game, and we also put some little movement for our player. Alright, so we make a new Unity project with the version 2D setup, and I'm just gonna call it YouTube Runner. Okay, so here we are. First thing we wanna do is make sure that our display is set to our font size. So just make sure to add that and set it, just like so. First thing we wanna do is make a new 2D object sprite. We call it boat player. And then we need to add some component. So rigid body 2D, because we are working on 2D. And we also make a new script and we call it boat movement. Okay, I'll create a new class. Here it is. We'll also make a new folder for all our scripts. And we also want to set the rigid body of our player to not have a gravity scale, because we want it fixed on one position. And we also want it to be constrained on the Y, so it won't move vertically, but only horizontally. Okay, but now it's empty, we can see it, so let's add a new sprite. And I'm just gonna use the one from my game, Boat Venture. Okay, so I imported the assets, just a PNG of a boat. You can set the compression to none. It's really a small image and it's in pixel art, so you don't need to worry about the size. Okay, so now we select our boat player, and for the sprite, in the sprite renderer, we put our asset. It's really big, so what we want to do is resize it, and you can just use the T tool, which is the rect tool, to resize it. Just gonna move it. Looks good. So then I reset position on the X to 0, Y -4. I'm just gonna put a nice number like so. Okay, so we have our boat. Now we need a way to move it, so we added the rigid body 2D for that. Okay, so now we want to open our boat movement script. So double click to open it in Visual Studio. I'm using version 2017, but if you're using 2019 or MonoDevelop, should be the same thing. Actually, MonoDevelop has been deprecated now, I think. Okay, so my default Visual Studio class is actually a bit different, but it doesn't matter. Just get it done with the way I have it right now, which is only using Unity Engine and then the class itself. So what we need are a couple of variables. So first we want a reference to a rigid body. So private rigid body 2D, and we call it RB. Then we want a reference to our camera to get the touch inputs. So we use private camera, and we call it main camera. Then we want a variable to hold our speed. So private float boat speed, and we are set. Actually, I'm gonna move this here. First thing we wanna do is get our references. So on a wake, we say that rb equals to get component rigid body 2D, and then main camera is equal to camera.main. Camera.main will fetch the main camera in our scene, so make sure that you have a main camera. We could also use directly camera.main in our future calculation, but using camera.main is actually really heavy on the machine, so it's better to get the reference on a wake, and it'll be easier afterwards. Okay, so now we want to get the touch input, so we want to know when the player is touching the screen. When it does, we want to move the boat. So we have to use update, and we have to write this little piece called input.touches.length major than 0. Oops. Okay, what this does, if you are familiar with input touch, is we want to know when the player is touching the screen with at least one finger. Because if he isn't, then we don't want to do anything. Okay, so in Boat Venture, my game, I use one simple way to detect touch input. Simply put, if you're touching the right side of the screen, you go right. If you touch the left side of the screen, you go left. It's not based on the position of the player itself. We can do that maybe in another episode. Okay, for now we want to get the position of the touch, so the finger. So what we want to do is vector3 touch position equals input dot touches 0 dot position. Okay, so now we store in a vector3 called touch position the position of the first finger that is touching the screen. This way, if you are touching the screen with multiple fingers, the second finger won't interfere with the first input. Sounds weird, but basically what it means is you can't move in both directions at once. Okay, so next thing is we want to convert this position from a screen position to work position. What this means is when we get the position of a touch, so of a finger on the screen, what we are actually getting are not the work coordinates, like these ones, but we are getting canvas coordinates, like they are the position of the screen itself. On the down left corner of the screen, it's 0, 0. Then we go here will be 360, 0. And on the top right will be 360, 75, 75. Here will be 0, 75. You get it. Basically, the center of the word in screen coordinates starts from here, while in the word position, 0, 0 is in the center. So now we want to know when the player is touching the left side of the right side of the screen, but in word coordinates. It's actually really simple. We just say touch position equals main camera dot screen to word point, and we feed it our touch position. Okay, so now we have our converted touch position. This way we'll know when we touch the screen the coordinates of the word. We want to see if it's on the right side of the screen or on the left. So we just check if touch position dot x major than 0, else. Okay, so right now when we touch the screen, this will go through. We'll get the position of the touch, and if that touch is on the right side of the screen, if we touch on this side, it's gonna trigger this if right here, this condition right here. Otherwise on the left. So what we do with these two conditions is we want to actually store a variable that will tell us the direction we are going. So to do that, we create a new int, we call it dir_x, and we set it to 0. And then here, when we want to say to go right, we just say dir_x equals 1. And then here, to go left is dir_x equals -1. Perfect. So now we know when we touch the screen, we have a variable that is 0 if you're not touching, 1 if you want to go right, and -1 if you want to go left. Like this, it's working. We don't need to set it to 0, but for the next thing we're going to write, we actually need to set it by default to a value. So we set it to 0. And then to actually move the boat, we reference our rigid body. We will say rigid body.velocity equals new vector2. And we say for the x-axis, we say direction x times boat speed times time.deltaTime. And for our y, we say 0. Okay, so what happens? Every frame, we get the direction. So if you're not touching the screen, is 0. If you're touching right, is 1. If it's on the left side, is -1. And then we multiply for the speed, which you can set in the inspector. And then we multiply for time.deltaTime to adjust for lag. Okay, what we actually want to add is a default value for speed. We set it to 50. And we also want to make it available in the inspector. Right now it's private. To that we say serialized field in between brackets. Okay, so let's go to our Unity editor. and it should update. Oh. Okay, it's 50. We actually want to put this to 250, I think. So right now, in theory, it should work, but to test it, we actually have to put it on the phone, so we have to make a build. So let's do that. Let's say File, Build Settings, and we switch our platform to Android, and I'll meet you after it loads. Okay, so it loaded. Now we go to Player Settings, and we change the company name. The name is already there. This has already been set. If it isn't, just make your company name product name, and it should work just like that. So make a build, and I'll call it YouTube Runner 01. Okay. Now I'll upload this build on my phone and test it. And you could also use Unity Remote to test simultaneously with your phone plugged into your computer. But I don't have it. I have it, but it doesn't really work because my cable is broken. So I'll just make a build and see you later. Okay, so I've tested it and it does indeed work, but we don't want to use our phone every time we want to test something, so we're actually gonna add an option to test our game within the editor itself. So what we want to do is actually check if we are playing on the editor or on the phone. So we just say if application.isEditor, else. Okay, and we pass all of this in here. Okay, so if you're playing in the Unity editor, you want to get the WASD input. If you're playing outside of the editor, so if you're playing on the phone, you're gonna get this kind of input, which uses a touchscreen. So how do we get the keyboard inputs? We just say if input.getKey code D, else if input.getKey keycode.A. Okay, we actually wanna do this. What's going on here? Oh, forgot a bracket. Okay. Brackets. Okay, so if you're touching D, you want to say direction x equals 1. If you're touching A, we say direction x equals -1. And because this is an else statement here, the editor and touchscreen option won't interfere with each other. Make sure to leave rb.velocity outside and direction x at the start. Okay, so now if you go to the Unity editor, hit play, and it works. Perfect. Yoo-hoo! Okay, so now the movement works, but it's kind of boring, so we're gonna add a little animation, and we'll make this through script. So we're just gonna rotate our boat on the left or on the right when we move. Okay, so we go back to the script, and we just say that when we move, so when we know that you are going in a certain direction, we also want to change our rotation. To do that, we say transform.rotation equals quaternion.euler 0, 0, minus 30 and plus 30 when we go left. So this is kind of weird, but basically we set our rotation to a quaternion Euler value. A quaternion Euler value is the same one that you find on the editor. So I just put it to 30 on the z-axis. So it's gonna look like this. What we want to do is put it to minus 30 when we go right and 30 when you go to the left. But we also want to change it to 0 when we are not moving. So here we say transform rotation quaternion Euler 0, 0, 0. This way, when we stop moving, it's gonna set back to look forward. Make sure to copy this script, or this part of the script, also on the touch part. So go like this, and like this. Let's check if it works. Yep. Woohoo! Okay, so right now we can actually move outside of the screen, which we don't want. So in the next episode, we'll talk about collision boxes, and we also make a couple of enemies, well, make a couple of entities, one of them being an enemy, to check for collision with other objects. Okay, see you in the next video.